Hey everyone, it's Jessica Edwards in Wilmington, North Carolina. So I had a new agent ask me recently, Jessica, what do you do to prep for a listing? Can you share what you do to prep for a listing? And I was kind of like, what? Like, that's just a silly question. Of course, you're going to prepare your marketing plan and review that with the seller. You're going to look at comps in the neighborhood and get kind of that price range and idea of it's not really that exciting. It's not really that interesting. And I kind of took a step back and I was like, you know what? The most important thing that I do as a listing agent is not the preparation for the actual meeting itself and about the property. It is the initial information I gather from that seller over the phone before we ever meet in person. So sellers, take note. If you're interviewing agents or an agent that you're speaking to is not asking you some of these specific questions, move on. You know, of course, there are obvious things that the agent should be asking you in that first phone call. Tell me about the address, tell me about the property, those kind of things. But are you the only person on the title? Because if there's somebody else that's listed, then they need to be part of that listing presentation and meeting because they're gonna have to sign that paperwork and sign that offer to purchase. You know, if somebody's married, even if they bought the property on their own in the state of North Carolina, it's 1 to buy, 2 to sell. So, you know, that other partner is going to have to sign that listing paperwork, offer to purchase, all those things. Why are you selling and how soon do you have to be there? How soon do you need to get where you're going? How soon do you want to list your property? Those things are really important. If somebody needs to list their property, you know, and sell it within, they've got to be somewhere in 30 days, or they've got 6 months, or just kind of starting the process. Those are important things to know before you meet with somebody. But some of the more specifics, and I think this is where a lot of agents, you know, sort of drop the ball, are things like, you know, if you can see the property in the MLS, great. You know, you can see kind of what it looked like before when they purchased it. But you need to ask them, you know, if you can't, certainly, but if you need to ask them, you know, how long have you owned your home? What updates have you done? What changes to the property have you made? Because if you're looking at that property in the MLS one way when they bought it, even if it was a couple years ago, they may have redone a kitchen completely. They may have added a deck and done this and done that. They may have redone a master bathroom, changed flooring. These kinds of things all play into that pricing and, you know, those market comps. And you need to know what changes they've made to the property since they've owned it. You need to know what they think their home is, you know, reasonable selling price. And it's not necessarily what your home is worth, but it's what is an acceptable sales price to you. Why this is important is because the listing agent needs to know. And as a seller, you know, you shouldn't be offended by this or think, oh, you know, the agent wants me to tell them what they want to list their home for. No, because a good listing agent is going to give you a true market, you know, opinion and an analysis using numbers. We can't change numbers. Numbers don't lie, I always say. But we need to know where that seller's mindset is on what their property is worth. And but not only that, what more specifically is an acceptable sales price to them, because that kind of gives us an idea of where their head is at financially. One of the most exciting things about this market in the last few years is how many times we've been able to tell sellers, okay, you know, you're way over that with the equity that you've gained in your home over the last few years, but that's another conversation. You also need to know, is there a mortgage on the property? And specifically, how much do you owe on this mortgage? This was really, really important in 2010, 11, 12. You know, when people were upside down in their homes and didn't really realize it. And that was a really shitty conversation to have, for lack of better words, with people when you had to tell them, you know, your house is worth X here, you know, and you owe up here, and they got that realization. I remember that was one of the hardest things, God, as a listing agent, that I had to do during that time. You need to know what 3 things they're looking for in a realtor. What are the most important things to them and the person that they hire? You need to know if they're interviewing other realtors. You need to know if they've ever sold a home before. You need to know, you know, how they heard about you, and just anything that they feel is a special feature to the property from the seller perspective and from them living there. So these are all the kinds of questions that you need to to ask. And it's not like a boom, 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 boom. It's a conversation, but you need to kind of come back to these questions. We actually use a seller interview sheet that is super helpful. Please comment or DM us if you want us to send you a copy of this. I'm happy to share it. And, years ago, and I still use these or take notes on them, but it really kind of helps guide you in that conversation, get back to make sure that you ask these questions, you get this information, because you don't want to get off the phone or you don't want to go to that listing appointment unprepared. You should not be asking these questions at the appointment when you're sitting with that seller. You should already know these things, and you should be able to be prepared and go into that appointment sharing, most importantly, what you're going to do to market this property and what you're going to do, as a listing agent to represent this property. We can get into pricing and all that. But that's the kind of thing that you need to do ahead of time. So prepping for a listing, I think that is the most important thing you can do, are the questions that you ask the seller before you ever meet with them. So I hope this is helpful to everyone out there. And if you have any questions or comments, of course, feel free to comment below. Check us out at thecarolinas.finest.com, and hope you have a great day.